Hi, want to make a perfect brisket? You start with this, and it's a dry rub, no beer, nothing else, no mustard. All the ingredients that you hear about are myths. All you need is a dry rub. Any kind of dry rub will work, depending to your likings. I use an entire bottle this size for a brisket this size. So basically, pour the entire bottle of dry rub and you rub it into the brisket on both sides. I do it on the side of it. I do it inside of it where I can. Just work it all in it. Here's an example. It's all worked inside it. And you just let it sit in its own juices and let it sit for several hours. And I'll show you what the grill looks like in a moment. Up next is the Oklahoma Joe smoker that I use. And basically, I just put some wood chips, mesquite, only mesquite, on the very bottom. And put my grate on top, which I will be cleaning, and go from there. Next, I put the brisket on, and key is to keep this temperature right at about 175 to 200. And once I get this closed up, it will do that exactly. So again, just dry rub, mesquite wood on the bottom with a little bit of coals. You have to have a smoker, obviously. Close it up. I usually keep the valves open about a quarter of the way, and that will control the temperature. And we'll come back and check on it a little bit, but it is very slowly climbing, as you can see. And we'll go from there. It will be a perfect brisket. It will cook for about 13 hours, and it is about 7:20 in the morning right now. It'll be done later on this evening. Okay, it's been smoking for about 2 hours, and here's my temperature. I like to keep it right under 200, and this smoker does a great job maintaining its smoke and heat level. And as you can see, the brisket is looking really, really good. And one thing you want is to make sure that it is nice and soft. When your brisket starts to turn hard very quickly, it's because your heat is too high. So we're going to flip the brisket. Okay, brisket is flipped, and as now I have the fat side up. I always start with the fat side down for the first couple hours just to seal it and lets the juices run into the meat. As you can see, it's a little sturdier on this side, but it will now smoke for the rest of the day. Now, very difficult to see, but my smoke chunks are still working very well. And again, it doesn't matter which kind of smoked wood you use, as long as you have at least a good layer of smoked chips on the bottom. Add as you see needed to maintain the heat that your smoker is keeping. But other than that, it's a 13-hour process, and again, I do absolutely nothing else to it other than add the dry rub. Dry rub is the key to a good brisket, and the second piece is to have a good smoker. And as you can see, my smoker has already cured, and never wash your smoker inside other than the grate. Obviously you want a clean grate to start with, but the curing of the grill itself will just make it that much better. All right, and it is going to continue smoking. Mine does have a chimney as such, and it also has an air inlet, which is this contraption here, which allows air to work its way into the chamber and allows the heat to rise and the smoke to move as such. But we will continue to monitor the temperature and see how it does in the next few hours. Okay, everybody, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon now. As I stated earlier, I started this process around 7, and right now I'm showing my temperature exactly where I like it, right about under 200, and as you can see, it's in the smoke range. Anything that's inside this range, it is actually cooking with your smoke. And of course, some of the heat, which is about 180 degrees. You never need to be in this red area for barbecue, nor in the yellow, which will definitely ruin your meat. These temperatures as high as this is really just for searing and for anything you want to cook very, very quickly. If you're cooking chicken, barbecue chicken, or something to that effect, this is typically a good range for that. But anything that you're going to consider smoked meat that you're going to cook for about 13 plus hours, you want it in this range. So let's see what it looks like. Okay, it's doing very nicely. As you can see, it's very soft, which is a really good indication. Now, I do not trim my fat. I'm going to say a good 80% of barbecue wannabes, or whatever you want to call them, or professionals, like to shave off the fat off of their meats. I actually leave my fat on it and cook it exactly as it comes. When I select my meat, I find something that has not a whole bunch of fat, but just enough fat so that it allows those juices to work its way into the meat. As you know, I started this fat side down so I could sear it a little bit, and then I flipped it after about an hour, and now what's happening, you can see these juices. See that? See, the juices are still in it and they're working their way into the meat, which is what's going to give it the perfect texture and also give it the extremely tender cut. I like my brisket very, very tender, almost a part where I lift it, it'll just fall apart. And that is Texas style, and Kansas City style and other recipes are a little bit drier and they're cut in a certain way. When this is done, I'll show you what it looks like. But as you can see way down there, my wood and coals are perfectly and have a perfect mixture going on right now. And I probably will be adding some more wood to this in about another couple hours or so. But again, these Oklahoma Joes do a really good job. I like the barrel smoker's way better than any other smoker because it does actually maintain the heat much better than any other smoker that I've used in the past. So we'll check back in a few and talk then. Okay, time to add a little bit of fuel. As you can see, my wood chips are looking really good. And what I do at this point, I move my brisket to the side and I start to move the other wood chips that haven't burned over. And I just pile them up. Now the beauty about these wood chips is they already have flavor from the brisket as it's dripping with the fat. And now what I do is I use, like I said, mesquite wood chunks. And we'll take a couple of these pieces, such as this. See, and you can see how it's already beginning to really smoke, which is what you want. And there we go. Brisket goes back on. Smoking great, as you can see. Now, you'll see the smoke. There we go. If I could describe the smell, it's a sweet, smoky flavor that you can almost taste. It's amazing. And it's like right now perfect based on where it needs to be. I probably won't touch this now for another 6 or 7 hours. As you can see, the temperature really dropped when I open it up, and it will climb very quickly, especially since I opened the top piece. I always keep my valve at about 3, but this will climb its way back up to the 200 mark or close to 200, and we will let it sit and cook. So one of the worst things that can happen when you're barbecuing or smoking any kind of meat is rain. And it is not really raining hard, but it's raining enough to where it could cause a little bit of an issue, because it will definitely cool the grill down. Even though this grill is pretty much enclosed other than the vent hood, it can cool it down, but I'm not too worried right now. I could put something over this to keep it from getting wet, but right now I feel like it's a little bit on the hot side. It just reached a little bit over 200 since we've put the new fresh wood. So simply going to open this up, and as you can see, it's starting to look really, really good. And this is exactly the texture that you want. It will be solid black when it's all said and done, but when you cut it, it's going to be bright red, smoky pink, and it's going to be amazing. So that's where we're at. I do have a tarp. By the way, these are my grapevines. I love growing grapevines, and we've had them in our previous homes, and they're already starting to make grapes, actually. These are peach trees. And these are various green peppers. And we have tomato plants all over. We decorate with tomato plants. We can trim them and keep them looking pretty healthy. Avocado plant, cherry tree, which is starting to bud. And lots of tomato plants, like I said. It's something we've always enjoyed doing. These are jalapenos. The nice thing about jalapenos is they're very heat tolerant and they do really well. As you can see, they're already starting to make jalapenos, and we'll keep these tomato plants around the pool for as long as we can keep them. They will get pretty much out of control, but anyway, back to my brisket. Great, it stopped raining, and as noted, my temperature's back under control, exactly where I need it, so I'm back in business. So if you're wondering what these hooks are here, you could actually hang these meats on this grill if you choose to do so. And it has these bars that you would insert. Like that. You'd pierce your meat and you would hang the hook. Whoops. That didn't work very well, but that's because I don't have it in all the way. Haha. Ah, I didn't catch that second hole on the bottom. So, see, now it's very steady. Anyway, pierce it and you let it hang as such. And you just kind of let the meat hang. You take the grill obviously out when you do that. But anyway, just an option. I usually do that with ribs. I don't like to hang the brisket. Probably not a good idea. But it's supposed to be a different method that people enjoy doing. I like cooking my brisket flat, and my next video should be, my next message should be it being close to done. It's now almost 6 p.m. So that's what it looks like at 6 p.m. Since been cooking since 7 o'clock this morning, close to 7:30. Okay, it's almost 8 o'clock in the evening, and as you can see, the temperature is still holding a really good temperature between 150 and 200. And what I've done, which is the most important step in this whole process, or one of the most important steps in this whole process, is to actually wrap your brisket for the last 2 hours in aluminum foil. Now, I will tell you that this is probably going to be an amazing brisket, and the way you can tell is when you poke it and it's as soft as it is, you know it's going to be extremely tender. Now, as you can see, the coals on the bottom, this is only one time that I replaced coals about 6 hours ago. Well, actually 4 hours ago, and I've changed coal, added more just once to this whole batch, and they're still burning. So we're gonna let this sit for just about a little bit under a couple hours, and we'll let this keep cooking. I did close the vents a little bit more, as you can see, to keep the temperature at a little lower space. I always keep this at 3. 3 is usually a really good number to keep it at, and we'll let it run, and we'll have this complete. And by the way, this is my crawfish cooker. I have another video on the best crawfish you've ever had if you want to check that out under my name, Stephen Mamo, and crawfish boil, and you'll see my video. But this was an amazing thing to cook. Check back. Okay, 13 hours later, as I said, it's done. And as I said, it will be solid black, as you can see. The beauty about this is it is so soft. If I were to pick this up, it would fall apart. And this is a perfectly cooked Texas brisket. And we're going to cut it open, and you shall see. Okay, so here's the brisket. I'm going to cut a piece just as a sample. As you can see, it just cuts like butter. And there it is. Extremely tender. And I'll turn it around so you can see it. That is as tender as you can get it. Amazing brisket. Always perfect, all the time. Thanks for watching.